All right, it looks like most people are here, so I'm gonna kick this off. Again, welcome to everybody to the Downtown Democratic Candidate Forum for New York City Public Advocate. We're thrilled to have everybody here and to get a chance to speak with the candidates and get to know them a little better. Thank you to the candidates for joining us today and being a part of this. Personally, I feel like it's a very important part of the political process for all of you to have a chance to hear from the candidates running for public advocate today. I'd just like to begin by thanking and introducing our co-sponsors for the event. I'm Cameron Kraus, along with Mar Fitzgerald. We're co-presidents of the Village Independent Democrats. I'll go down the list. Representatives from CODA, if you'd like to say a few words. Or Jamie and Tatiana on? Sorry. Okay, all right, I'll move along. Next up, we have Downtown Independent Democrats. Would you guys like to say a few words?
I would. Thanks, Cam. I'm Richard Corman, president of Downtown Independent Democrats. It's great to be able to co-sponsor this with all of our downtown clubs representing Manhattan from below 14th Street. Amazing group of people, an amazing area for us to be representing here. I want to thank particularly the folks on our team that helped put this together. Joshua Goodman, David Weiss, Meg Pascarella, and Sue Burke. They really did an enormous amount of work putting today and tomorrow's forum together. So I really appreciate that. And thank you, Cam, Mar, and Chung for co-hosting this with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Richard. Next up, we have Grand Street Democrats. Let's see.
Hey, everybody, thanks. This is Jeremy Sherber. I'm the founding president of Grand Street Dems. Just very quickly, welcome and thank you to all of my downtown partners who have been putting these forums together. It's been really helpful for me and my members, and I hope other folks downtown. So thanks for the candidates for showing up today.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. Next up, we have the new Downtown Democrats. See if I can find you guys. Sorry, there's a lot of people on. I'm just trying to find the correct people to unmute. Patrick and Michael. I don't see them. All right. I can circle back. Next up, we have United Democratic Organization. Anybody like to say?
Thanks, Cam. Hi, everyone. This is Chung Sito, president of United Democrat Organization, or UDO. And it's just been a pleasure with our downtown partners, particularly Richard, and all the partners who have pulled these forums together. They're enormously educational as well. Our members are applauding all of you, for all of us, for putting these forums together. Thank you to all the candidates who are participating. We're looking forward to engagement with you to make the downtown communities better, and so that we could all stay safe and thrive. So thank you.
Well said, Chung. Thank you. And next up, we have Village Reform Democratic Club. Oh, sorry, Ray. Yeah, you're muted.
I think we're on now.
Yes, you're good.
Okay, I want to thank everybody who made this possible. This is one of those campaigns where it's kind of hard to pull off because it's overshadowed by so many of the other people running for office. So I want to thank everyone who's taking away their time on Saturday to be here. And hopefully we'll all have a healthy year. Have a good day.
Thanks so much. And I echo what everyone said. Thank you to everybody that helped put this together. I have a feeling this is going to be a great forum. Just a few things at the top so that everyone's aware we are recording this. So just make sure if you don't want to be recorded, you can turn your camera off and mic off, or you can leave if you feel that too uncomfortable. But this is being recorded, just so everyone knows. We ask that in order to ask questions, you use the hand raise button. For some people, it can be found under the participants tab, though we're seeing that for others, it might be under the reactions tab. So in one of those two places, you'll be able to see the option to raise your hand. It's just too many people to keep track of people physically raising your hand. So we ask that you please use that button. In between candidates, we'll lower all the hands so the list will reset for the next candidate. We're gonna give candidates 5 minutes to talk, and then we're gonna do another 15 minutes for question and answer. Questions will have a 45-second time limit, and answers will have a 2-minute time limit. We'll try to be as fair as possible, but please do your best to keep it to 45 seconds. And to the candidates, please do your best to keep it to 2 minutes. And with that, I'd like to introduce Tony Herbert. Oh, you're muted. There you go.
Yeah, thank you so much. I actually was trying to get my lighting together for whatever reason. It's been crazy today. Thank you all so much for this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm community advocate Tony Herbert. I wasn't born with that name. I just happened to come across it when I thought that I needed to make a commitment into my community to help change things that were happening here in New York. Just some simple background. I'm a former staff of the Congressman Ed Towns. I worked in the city council. I worked in the state senate. I was in charge of all of the state outreach around the entire reapportionment task force for the census, and had created such an opportunity to really get to see a lot of what's happening in and around New York. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn. For the most part, I'm a twin of my twin brother's a knucklehead, but still love him to death. And I have 2 other siblings on top of that. I'm a father of 4, and I'm grateful for my kids who do a great work as well. They follow in their dad's footsteps. And I'm recently married. Well, I'm celebrating a year now, so thank God that went really quick. Outside of that, I'm a part of a number of organizations and community boards that, basically are about advocacy. I work with the USTEP USA, which is a national youth organization. I've been with them for about 20 years. And that's only because of where I come from, working as a youth in this city under the premise of the International Association of Lions Clubs. I was in their youth division, the Leo Club, for a number of years. And that's when I learned to actually get myself fully engaged in community work. Now, that doesn't start without the fact that I've had some adversity in life. Prior to getting ready to graduate from high school, my family and I suffered some serious setbacks due to gentrification. We were actually forced out of the apartment we lived in, and my mom had to make a decision. My mother, who worked in the public school system for about 30 years as a school aide, was a fighter. And I think I get a lot of my energy from her because she never gave up on us. And we were afforded the opportunity to make a decision. And that decision was either go into shelter, live on the street, or find somewhere else to live. And mom just didn't have it financially for us to get another apartment. So she had to come up with a quick decision. She moved us across the street into an abandoned building where we lived for about 8.5 months as squatters. And immediately upon my graduating high school, I was able to get a job through a mentor in the community that I had, and was afforded the opportunity to put my money with hers to move us up out of there. It was the onset of a conversation with the then senator who we went to for help. And that senator had no answers for us. And that in itself, created my concern about, if we have elected officials that can't help us, then why should they be in office? So that kind of piqued my interest into understanding what the whole government process was. So I did my due diligence, and I went out and I got myself, integrated with the process of what it is to be elected, what it is to be a representative, and understood the dynamic of that. And that's why I sought after those particular positions and was in a position to go and work for a congressman, a city council member, and also for the state Senate Democratic caucus. So with that being said, I am here because I understand the bureaucracy. I know how to get around it. I am not one of those guys, that's bought and sold by any elected official or any special interest group. It is my concern to do the business of New Yorkers because I'm one. And I want to do exactly what I needed somebody to do for me and my family and other families like mine. And I don't understand the whole process of why we don't have an answer to the crime in our community when people are walking around getting hit upside their head. There should not be the most vulnerable in our community, women and children, fearing to go out on our streets or getting on our New York City subway. Somebody has to make noise. It's not enough to go out there and fly in the face of the police and blame them for all our issues, except for get to an opportunity where we can be at the table and working on what actually divides us and get us working together so the police are doing CPR and we are doing what we're supposed to do as New Yorkers, and that's becoming one. And that's what I will fight for, to bring New York together based on cultural lines and everybody else. At the end of the day, we should be one New York, one family. And that's what I believe. And that's what I would do. I would cross all kinds of lines into other communities to bring us together. I would engage our youth to do just that because they're going to inherit a lot of what New York is about. And if we don't prepare them the right way, we're going to get more of what we've been getting for the last 30 years. The same conversation about, oh, we're going to do this, that, and the third if you just reelect me this time. We can't afford to keep going back to that. I don't, Mr. Klein or Ms. Wolpe, none of you should have to fear walking down the street to get to where you have to go to in a day where you pay your taxes to be safe and looking for a clean neighborhood. And I told the same thing to the Upper West Siders, and I've got embraced by them. We need an advocate that is available and accessible to everyone's needs in our city, and not just out there acting as an activist and not doing the job of a politician that is to go out there and make sure policies are working for the very people that hired that individual. That's why I'm running for public advocate, in short, and I'd be more than happy to take any and all questions at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert, and congratulations on your 1-year anniversary.
Thank
Do we have
you.
any questions? Let me ask, are people able to find the raise hand function? Because I got
Kim
some
has
messages.
her hand up.
There we go. Tony Hoffman. You should be able to
Quick
unmute.
question. I looked you up yesterday online and it had an I next to your name. Are you running in the Democratic primary or are you running as an independent?
I don't know what the Board of Elections is doing. I think it's more shenanigans, but I am a Democrat registered. So we're going to rectify that before the deadline because, again, this is all the games of politics that's been played. And I put a book out about this craziness, if you get a chance to read it. It talks about all of the stuff that holds us back from actually wanting to run for office because of all the games being played. So I don't know what that's all about, but I'm going to get to the bottom of it. I am running as a Democrat.
You will be running in the Democratic primary.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Robert Score. You should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Herbert, for taking the time to be with all of us today.
Thank you.
I hope we're all safe and healthy and maintaining social distance and wearing face masks, etc. I am the recording corresponding secretary with Local 1 of the IATSE, which is the Stagehands Union. And this is a very particular question I have for you, and I hope you can respond. We are at this point about 90% unemployed due to COVID. We all know Broadway is shut down. The entertainment industry has been devastated. And I'm wondering, Mr. Herbert, in the role as public advocate, what can you do to revive the entertainment industry in New York City, which, as we also all know, is an enormous financial engine for New York City?
I thank you for that question, and I preference it this way. I actually am a member of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, my organization I started, which is a chamber of commerce that works very closely with a lot of the nightlife industry, particularly nightclubs, restaurants, bars, and lounges. I come from the entertainment industry. I'm a former promoter, a party promoter, and I celebrate the fact that New York's nightlife has been hit. That we need, and should I say celebrate the fact that we need to put energy into that, I should say, to revive it. When it's all said and done, New York is the reason why people come here, our nightlife. And at the end of the day, when I go to Broadway and I can't go see a play or something, it hurts my heart deeply. It hurted my heart that I couldn't go see the Rockefeller tree get lit, in the proper time frame. So I would be an advocate that would sound his bullhorn extremely loud to ensure that they understand that New York's nightlife is the bloodline that creates the excitement for people to come here. So I'd be the first person on the front line standing with you and your union members to encourage our city council members and this mayor to identify, if we can find money for bus lanes, we can find money to keep our entertainment industry alive and vibrant.
Thank you. Our next question is from Mariama James. Mariama, you should be able to unmute. And I love your name, by the way, because it's mine.
That's so funny. Hi, thank you. I think I met your aunt the other day, by the way. Thank you for all of you for being here, but particularly you, Sarah, of course. My question is, to what extent do you think the NYPD needs to be reformed, or do they just need training in things such as that which you suggested, like CPR or whatever else?
Well, first and foremost, as an African-American male raising young Black men in this society, I recognize, and having had my issues in the past of being stopped and frisked, that first and foremost, the police department has to recognize it has a responsibility to show each and every one of us respect, courtesy, and professionalism. It is my position of late that I've always been able to get to the table and sit down and talk with the commanding officers of the various precincts, to talk with the brass at One Police Plaza. I think what has to happen here is that there needs to be some transparency with regards to us being able to work together, because we need police on these streets. There's no other way about it. We can't go out there and police ourselves. Heck, most of us don't even like each other, quite frankly, because we don't know each other. We've got frustrations. We've got all kinds of things going on. And the last thing we need is somebody telling us what to do. So what we need to do is work together. We need to still be at that table. We need a public advocate that can work directly with the police department and say to this commissioner, I'm watching, and I want to make sure that your police are doing the job, and I will interact with those police officers personally every single day. I would make sure that my public advocate in charge of public safety would be that person that would always be corresponding back and forth to ensure that we're doing what's necessary to keep New Yorkers safe, but at the same time, making sure that we're being respected.
Can I ask him what could we do to prevent people like the discovered white supremacists that they had in charge of anti-discrimination and racism? Like, how can we ensure that people only who actually meet the qualifications and who have credentials for these positions within the police department are hired? Because I think that's a major part of the problem.
Well, I think one of those things that can take place, and I would be open to more suggestion, is a serious vetting process. I mean, I applied for the police department, and I didn't get to the actual interview process because we had a major tornado or something like that. And then I changed my mind because the bank came to me and said, look, we're going to give you $25,000 more than what the police are going to pay you. So I took that job. But I think there needs to be, first and foremost, a stronger vetting process. And then we should also be involved in that process where we have we have these groups that are there, but the question is, what is the agenda of these other individuals that are sitting at those tables? We need people that are going to report directly back to the people, not just to a little committee of folks and they make decisions in the back room. We need folks that can get out here and respond directly to the people on why we have this particular officer or this commanding officer or these individuals in a place that they should be overseeing the safety of our community. So I talk about the thought process of us being able to be at the table when they do their interviews on these cops.
Thanks so much.
So much. Our next speaker is Terry Coode. Terry, you should be able to unmute.
And hi, and thanks again for everybody pulling this very important forum together. The public advocate, one of the jobs of public advocate is balancing what's going on in other areas of government, such as the mayor.
Yeah.
One of the things that the mayor is doing right now is pushing through for affordable housing, a very important goal. So what are your thoughts on creating affordable housing, specifically on the use of MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing, and your thoughts on rezoning in historic districts?
Well, one, I don't think that any, and thank you for the question, I don't think that any decisions should be made without the inclusion of real stakeholders in the community. when it's all said and done, we're New Yorkers. We pay the taxes. We don't work for them. They work for us. And when it comes down to you getting your questions answered or whatever the case may be about what's happening in your community, you should be at the table way before the conversation even gets to a point of a vote or anything else at that community board. It should be vetted. It should be communicated that this is what the intentions are. Some of what the mayor talked about, and I believe him and the governor suggested that we turn some of the office buildings in our communities into affordable housing, given the fact that we've lost a lot of businesses and we lost a lot of that commercial rent tax. But that sounds good to me, but I didn't hear the part that said clearly that folks in the community who are the stakeholders are going to be at that table to have the conversation. So that's the first thing that I would prioritize, to ensure that New Yorkers are at the forefront of any conversation that has to deal with anything that may inconvenience or even hopefully enhance their community. So that's the one thing I would push for.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker or question asker is Jeremy Sherber.
Hey, thanks, Mark. The public advocate has a pretty broad portfolio, but specifically the public advocate can introduce legislation in city council. I was wondering if there's any legislation you have in mind to introduce.
Well, again, it comes down to, thank you, Jeremy, for that. It comes down to making sure that the community is informed. An informed community is a strong community, I believe. So the thought process is, and help me understand this too, because you guys you're out there, I'm out there, I've been out there for a while. When you go to a community board meeting, decisions are being made in these committees and they're brought before the board committee to make a decision on. The problem is that most people that are on these community boards, and I don't take away any of the good work that they do or their intention, but that information never trickles back to the community that a lot of these folks come from. So it's a problem for me to say that we don't get all the information that's necessary to allow us to be able to grow in our own community. So one of the things that I look to put forward is to mandate that a community board, if they're not already doing so, that they automatically post up the minutes from their particular meeting, because the conversation goes like this. I hear people say, well, if you want to hear what's going on, come to the community board meeting. But hello, if there's 90,000 people in that district, 90,000 people are not going to fit in a room of 100 people. So my thought process is, let's get this out. So let's get the information so that we're all getting it in real time so that folks can make a choice decision in the next meeting as to what's coming up. It's got to be about informing the community and making sure that you have a public advocate that's going to bring it to you before it becomes a problem in your community.
Thank you. Bill Ferns, you should be able to unmute.
Can't hear him.
We can't hear you. I don't know. Let's see if I can do anything. I'm going to mute you and then unmute you.
Is that better? I'm sorry.
Yeah, there you are. Hello.
Okay, I had some complicated stuff I had to unplug. Sorry. So
Same problems.
Thank you for waiting for me. Quickly, my question is, the City Planning Commission has the public advocate appoints one.
So the City Planning Commission, yes.
What would be your ideal candidate?
First and foremost, somebody that pays attention to the needs of the community, first and foremost, and that's aware that whatever information is being discussed is brought back. I mean, I'm a community guy. It's always been my position to make sure that we get the information so that we can make the decisions. My planning commission appointee, the first thing they would do is take that information, bring it back. We communicated it to the community first and let the community help us make the decision on what direction we should go with.
Thank you so much. Laura Tenenbaum, you should be able to unmute.
I'm unmuted. Thank you. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for putting this together, and also for the candidates for spending their Saturday coming. I really am grateful. I have a question, Tony, about, you had mentioned that you have a background in nightlife, and nightlife issues have been really big downtown. Right now, we're in the middle of a terrible pandemic, and as part of that, we have open streets restaurants. And there has been discussion about making that permanent. What's your opinion on that? And how do you think that would impact downtown?
Well, I mean, again, downtown is a unique, area for us. Tribeca, Battery Park City, Chinatown, all those areas for the most part are unique and are tourist attractions. So the question of the matter, what's the impact on traffic? What's the impact on the pedestrians? With regards to closing off streets and things of that like, and affording us to be able to move around comfortably and safely. One of the things I will say as a member of the Hospitality Alliance, I actually managed a number of nightclubs, and I've also actually worked with a number of booking agents to look at venues and the safety of those venues, and to ensure that we have the right atmosphere for these type of things. So the community is always engaged. I was always hired to do the community outreach per se. So one of the things that's important to me is to be the public advocate that goes back to the community and make sure you're included in the conversation. That's the job. That's just the bottom line of this job. Making sure that you communicate to the community and advocate their concerns and what their thought process is to ensure that where they live, they're comfortable and it's convenient.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to pass it on to Richard to bring on our next candidate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariama. Now that we know, our next candidate is, we're happy to bring on is Jumaane Williams, but I'm not sure if he's on the call yet. Jumaane, are you here? And
He's
he just entered the waiting room. I just let him into the room.
Perfect. Jumaane, your timing could not be more impeccable. We're just introducing you. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday. And as you can see, we have a great deal of interest in the public advocate position and in this forum. So welcome, and we ask you to introduce your thinking about this race and the public advocate role for 5 minutes.
Oh, thank you so much. Peace and blessings to everyone. Can everyone hear me? Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Richard, for the introduction and all the work you're doing and all the work that all these clubs are doing. And true to who you are, I appreciate everyone combining and having one of these. So easy on it to candidates to come out. First, there's a couple of clubs that supported me in the LG race, which was a very difficult race. So I wanted to say thank you to them, and even more supported me during the public advocates race when there was a lot of relationships and other political dynamics that made it difficult. And for those who didn't, the one great thing about elections that people should always keep in mind, it gives you a great opportunity for new relationships and new ways to move forward. So I'm happy to be here with everybody to try to continue relationships, build and move forward in government. I am hoping to get reelected to serve my first term on the city council. I'm public advocate. I've been on the city council for just about a decade now as public advocate. The roles, folks may know, it's basically 5 charter mandated roles. So you have legislative powers, you're an ombudsman, you go between the city people and the government, to charter cop, making sure agencies are doing their job. You have appointments to you vote on a pension board, and you make appointments to very important committees. This past almost 2 years now, I'm proud that we've passed more pieces of legislation in consultation with the city council, who have a great partnership than any other public advocate, which is exciting to us. We've reshaped what the office is focused on. The last public advocate, as you know, had a very big legal background, and I had a lot of focus on lawsuits and a lot of attorneys. I'm community organizer, so we reshaped it into a big community organizing office. We have a great community engagement part of the office. Has 5 main DPAs and 5 issue areas. Really, I'll continue to push forward conversations as we move forward, not going back to normal, because I don't think normal worked for a lot of people, trying to build a better normal. I think you need to have a public advocate who really has the experience of not only speaking up and pushing back on power, but actually getting results. And that's important as we try to get through this pandemic economically and around public safety, trying to reimagine what public safety is so it's not inextricably linked with just policing. And those are heavy conversations, and we have to have people who can do it. And I'm looking forward to doing that with all the clubs here while we keep our governments honest and as transparent as we possibly can. So thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jumani. We'll take questions from the audience. Please raise your virtual hand and we'll call you in the order that you do that. Again, please keep your questions brief. Try to keep them within 45 seconds and answers within 2 minutes so we can get as many questions in as possible. Robert Score, you're up first. I have to ask.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Williams, for taking the time to be with us here today and for all your work as public advocate and on City Council. My name is Robert Score. I'm the recording corresponding secretary with Local 1 of the IATSE, which is the Stagehands Union. And my standard question to you and for all candidates that I've had the privilege of speaking with is how, as a public advocate, can you help restore the entertainment industry in New York City, which, as we all know, is a practically a $15 billion industry for the city. And we're hurting right now. We're about 90% unemployed. And I'm hoping that your role as public advocate can come in to support our members and our families. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that question. For those who don't know, my first love is actually acting. So many people may know I have Tourette's syndrome, but when I'm on stage, my tics go away. I still do some work with the organization called Theater of War. The arts are extremely important to me. I think my mother used it to try to keep us two knucklehead children that she was raising by herself out of trouble. She did a pretty good job with that. We managed to get in some trouble, but whether it was attending Harlem School of the Arts or I was a member of the All City High School Chorus, it was a very big part of my education. So when people talk about STEM, actually, I always have to remind them to talk about STEAM because arts are very important. So it's not hard for me to want to engage on arts and entertainment. It's a critical part of just life. But I would even add, it might be even more critical to the regrowth that we need, especially now, as we're really not sure what work is going to look like as we get past this. So we have to have industries that we know can't move away and also help create New York, maintain New York City as a place to be. And I think arts and entertainment is one of those spaces. So I'm very much into trying to figure out how we do that, Robert. I have some ideas, but I welcome other ones because I think it's going to be a big part of New York City maintaining its status as we move forward.
Thank you, Jumani. Our next questioner is Kathy Slowinski.
Thanks, Richard, and thank you, Jumani, for showing up. I would like to ask you what your position is on the scheme to upzone Soho and NoHo and on upzoning in general.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for that question. I actually usually try to talk about, I know people talk about upzone and downzone. I try to talk about contextual zoning because I think that is what we really have to think about. I went through this process, before I left, I was going through this process in East Flatbush. And really, I believe one of the problems is we've been kind of doing this piecemeal. We really need to do it on a citywide level. But most communities just generally don't want to give up density. So we do have to push that conversation. Just to frame it, if we, as a city, look the way we did 100 years ago, we wouldn't be the city. We wouldn't be the city with transportation and growth. If we look the way we did, the way we do now, the next 100 years, we probably would have failed the next generation. So the question is, how do we grow while maintaining the character of a neighborhood? That's a difficult conversation, So as public advocate, what I've been trying to do is have the conversation with communities instead of to communities. So what I generally say is that we in places have to give up density, someplace, but we should talk to the community about where that density is possible. The difficulty of this, I will say, and I'll try to do this here really quickly, people will indulge me. I have 3 questions that I generally ask communities. The first one is, who thinks that housing and homelessness is probably one of the biggest concerns that we have as a city? If I get to see folks raise hands, who thinks that that is one of the, and who thinks that the primary answer to that is housing that people can actually afford and the income level that they can afford it? Raise your hand if you think. And then the next question is, who wants a taller building next to them? So no matter where you ask those 3 questions, socioeconomic, race, culture, everyone answers that question the exact same way. And it just shows the difficulty of even getting to the answer that everybody agrees is needed. So first we have to preserve the affordability that we have, that's number 1. But to the extent that we have to build, we have to build. And so I'm into trying to find out how we can work with these communities to find the density that's needed. Somebody shut down the voting or we won't vote for you. Oh, that's unfortunate. But because I don't know if I can commit to that, so I apologize. I do think MIH is horrible and should be done away with. I also believe there should be racial impact studies done before the rezonings are done. I have that bill as well. Again, I think that we have to do it with communities, and communities should be able to move forward and say, here's where we can give up density, but here's where we won't. And that's the exchange of conversation that we have to have, in addition to doing this in a contextual way, respecting the context that's there already. We had to try to do that in East Flatbush, where people wanted to keep their 1 and 2 family homes, which is beautiful. I want to do that. And then say, well, okay, where else can we go and get some density? So that's how I look at these. And that's how I'm looking at the ones for Soho and NoHo. We can't only rezone the poorer neighborhoods, which are generally Black and brown. So we have to do this kind of collectively. Hopefully that answers some of the questions of my thinking on that.
Sorry, thank you, Jumani. Important question for a lot of people on this call, of course, so appreciate the answer. Our next questioner is Matthew Lowe.
Hi, hi, Jumani. I'm Matthew. I don't know if you remember me. We met at Brooklyn Tech and then also a bunch of other times before. I'm a member of UDO, and well, so I have noticed since even before the pandemic began, maybe 2 or 3 months beforehand, that Chinatown was already being affected by the xenophobia and racism that came with the connotation of having that community that, also happened to be the same ethnicity as the country where COVID-19 originated. And so since September 2020, 82 restaurants in Chinatown have closed down. And at the same time, small businesses across the city are suffering from a lack of effective outreach and multilingual resources to assist small businesses in applying for relief. How do you seek to specifically support the needs of Asian American small businesses and communities in relation to this?
Thanks so much for that question. Our small businesses have been walloped. I can never, even as I move forward, and I'm very progressive minded, can never under or overstate rather the impact of our economy and what we're dealing with right now. Small businesses is a huge part of that. For some reason, we always forget about small business. We start aiming for the big boys and girls, and we give all these tax breaks to the big ones to create jobs. And I've never understood, why can't we give those same tax breaks to small businesses and also incentivize their job creation? So my hope is to push some of those type of things. And it's really important that we not be afraid to focus not only small business, but culturally and racially as well, because we're pretty good at describing the problem that way. We're not very good at describing the solutions that way. And so we know a space like Chinatown was hit not only by the way the pandemic hit everybody, but by the xenophobia that was attached to it. And so we have to have an answer for that. And so I don't mind focusing on a place like Chinatown that not only is, culturally significant, it's pretty iconic in the city and in the state. And we have to make sure that we're focused on these places the same way the problem was. And so I'm into that. I even have a few ideas again, but I'm always willing to work with the folks who are closest hit because they usually have the best solutions.
Thank you. Our next questioner is Victoria.
Hi, Unime. It's Victoria. It was me who said that we wouldn't vote. You know me. I think you remember me testifying about our lofts, where our landlord nearly killed us by hot wiring the buildings, masking themselves as a tenant, causing our ceilings to fall in, obstructing our secondary means of egress, and starting a fire at Smith and Mills. There are now 37 permits to repair our damage from the Greenwich Hotel that the city falsely claimed did not exist. Our lofts were the centerpiece of the $20 million Airbnb scheme. You can Google it, 385 Greenwich Airbnb. Unime, the reason that I said that we would not vote for you for the upzoning is, Unime, you and I both know that MIH doesn't work. We've gotten very few affordable units, and it's caused, first of all, major displacement. Half of Tribeca is now warehoused over the rezoning.
Victoria, questions are limited to 45 seconds. So could you please state your question right now?
So that our concern in Lower Manhattan is first and foremost protecting our historic districts. The second is that Tribeca and Soho were all lofts, and we support the entertainment industry.
I'm sorry, Victoria, you didn't get to your question.
Well, my question is, what are you going to do about the Soho rezoning, where the loft board has misrepresented how many rent stabilized units there are to put into rent stabilization, and why you haven't been more vocal to shut this down? It is such an important lifeline.
Victoria, we have it. Thank you. Let Jumaane answer.
Thanks so much for bringing the question back up. Just to the last question, I also wanted to just make clear that we have to call out, anti-Asian sentiment and anti-Chinese sentiment a lot more than we do, particularly as we talk about the communities that need assistance. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that. Just wanted to clarify, Victoria, it's Jumaane. You may not, I've been called worse, but I just wanted to make sure that I clarified that there's a hard J on there, well, a soft J, but a J nonetheless. So I just want to be clear, MIH stinks, and I think we should do away with it. I was one of 5 electeds to vote against it. If the question is, does what's being proposed is the best, I want to look back into it and see if the plan makes sense and if what we're getting is worth it, and if we're doing it contextually. If the question is, would I not support anything, then I can't answer that as a no. Like, I can't say I will not support anything because it just doesn't make any sense. So what needs to happen is we need to preserve the most that we can to keep the context of the neighborhood, and in exchange for that, find where we can give density. But that density needs to be primarily mostly affordable. And so I do agree, if we're giving up density somewhere and it's primarily market rate housing, I don't know that we have to get rid of the loft. The lofts that are there to do this, and I don't agree with that either. So, I'm sorry if I can't answer the question exactly how you want. I would love to have your support and all the club support. But if you know me, I kind of try to say the same thing to everybody, so I don't have to remember what I lied to one person about. If possible.
That's refreshing. Our next questioner is Marion Rydell. Hi, Marion.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Jumaane. It's nice to see you.
You too. Thank you so much.
My question has to do with the lack of, how could you help our situation with the East River Park and the lack of transparency that has been evident with the changing of plans? There was a plan that was accepted. There was a plan that was accepted. They said there was a value engineering report. Turns out there's no such report. Now there's another plan that did not have community input that is costing twice as much. That's going to have the park closed for at least 5 years. And when there's other parts of the city where other kinds of resilience has been developed, like gates that go up around the river instead of a 10-foot dirt dump not even dirt, fill dump that we're planning to get down here. How can we at least get to the table where we have conversation about what are the different options with transparency? What's the different effect of it for someone like me who lives, you know, a few blocks away in the co-ops to the people right along the river who live in NYCHA housing? And how do we get some clarity, transparency?
So I appreciate that question, and it's coming up more and more. And when I actually have spoken to the council member there about the issues that I've been hearing, and I've heard some pretty good responses, but then I come back and I hear something else. And so maybe I can reach back out to the council member. And if there's folks who feel that they weren't on the table, maybe my office can try to make that connection. Because generally it's stuff like this. Sometimes you ask one party one thing, you go back, by the time you come back, there's something else. So I think it's be good to get everybody, this may have happened, but some of the folks who are most vocal are kind of in the same space, and just maybe have that conversation with everyone in the same space so we can all hear the same thing.
Thank you. Our next question is from Joanna W. Joanna?
Joanna,
Hi, public. Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yes.
Hi, sorry. You recently introduced Intro 2121, which would impose penalties on Class A violations up to $500 plus $25 per day. This is the lowest level type of violation. It's like, you know, a missing sign in the hallway. You know, I think obviously safe housing is important to everyone, and things that I think would be more effective are things like ensuring that proper notification was given to co-op condo boards, property managers, owners, whoever's in charge, and ensuring that timely access is given so that these type of, you know, whatever needs to be fixed are fixed. Would you be interested in proposing some sort of legislation like that would help ensure safe housing?
I'm always interested just in every idea. We introduced a lot of pieces of legislation. My guess, without having it in front of me, is that one also increases B and C violations, which, as you know, are the worst. I would also say that I've never introduced a piece of legislation that wasn't changed before it became law. So to that extent, you know, if and when it has a hearing, I'd be happy to listen, and I have always listened to input that we get from the public and make adjustments where possible. So you can either, you know, reach out to the Director of Legislation, Casey Anderson, in my office to see if we have the ability to, or if we are in agreement in what you're saying to introduce, or you can wait until there's a hearing and we can talk about it then as well.
Yeah, I've been in contact with Casey, so I'll reach back out to her to continue that conversation. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Jumani, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're out of time. It looks like with all the questions ready to be asked, we could go on for quite a long time. So please, if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, put it in the chat or send it to one of your club reps, and we'll try to get answers back for you from Jumani. So thank you so much for joining us, Jumani.
I don't know, is there like maybe a minute closing or something I can say?
Yes, why don't you please take a minute.
Thanks again. So, you know, we've been focused on the campaign side, on the government side, but we're really not taking this race for granted at all. So would really love to have the support of all the clubs here. It would mean a lot as we move forward toward a primary day. I did want to mention, I thought this would come up, but you know, public safety is a very important topic. I thought it would come up with one of the conversations, and we have to have this conversation thoughtfully, but in earnest. Gun violence is going up in communities, and we can't ignore that. So we have to have a plan. I've been asking for a plan to happen the same way with the pandemic every day, to have the mayor and others talk about what's happening. And what we need to do is make sure that our police officers, who have an important job to do, is that they understand what it is, the job is, and what that role is inside of public safety. What has happened too often is we've equated it with public safety. And we know where communities that have access to quality jobs, access to quality healthcare, housing, school, look a lot different. That doesn't mean you have to excuse people. There's no excuse to be shooting people in the street. But we also know we have to get to the root causes of these issues while we're holding people accountable. And so we're trying to reframe, and people can go to my website and see the 10-point plan of reimagining public safety as the framework, and then figuring out, well, okay, here is what police officers' role is here. Because until we do that, we're going to keep having these circular arguments that I don't think are constructive. So I'd love one day to come back to talk to this group about how we can do that and how folks can help. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
Love to have support. Love and light to all.
Thank you, Jumani. We appreciate that offer, and we'll definitely look to have that conversation with you. It's very important, as you say, to all of us. I'd like to introduce Chung Sito, who will introduce our next candidate.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you, Jumani, for taking time. Those are really important questions to address, as well as public safety. So engagement on that is critical, as we are seeing much more street violence and attacks and gun violence as well. And so we're looking forward to that. Next, we have Theo Chino. Theo, are you on?
Hello.
Hi, I think you're unmuted now. Sorry about that.
Hello, how are you?
We're great. So we're here waiting for your comments.
Well, my name is Theo Chino. I will be very short. Thank you very much for all the Downtown Club to organize this. And I won't go over who I am because I had sent that about a year ago when I ran for the chair of the Democratic Party for the Manhattan Democrats. So if you remember the county committee, I had sent a letter to everybody. Instead, I want to talk about why I'm still running for public advocate. And I'm still running because I believe that my comrade Jumani here has failed. And he's an activist, and I want to say bravo to him. But there is still a lot of things that we need to do together. I am an activist, all that stuff. And the role of the public advocate the reason I'm running is for two reasons. We need transparency with the city agency. And there is so much corruption that plague housing and HPD, NYCHA, and you name it. And basically we need to have transparency. So as public advocate, I will introduce law to force the transparency of the public-private partnership between the city and the private developer. The last bill was introduced by Ben Kallos, but he didn't go far enough to put into the computer system all of HPD private contract. You cannot find anything. The other thing is there is 135,000 empty units in New York City that are managed by HPD. And we're talking about a housing crisis when you have 135,000 built empty units across the city managed by our city. What's going on? So we need to look at that. And our public advocate has been approached many times about those issues. So I'm still running because of that. And the other reason I'm running for is because the public advocate is the chair of the Commission of Public and Information and Communication. Basically, it's a body that deals with all the information that New York City has. I have proposed my name to Jumani. Jumani never called back. So I'm still running because I want to be the chair of that body, because I know what to do, because I'm a computer engineer. So basically that's about it. I don't want to spend more time explaining who I am or what it is. I would like to go into questioning because I think that's more exciting for you. So let's go into question, or I can answer the question that were previously asked. Either way.
Okay, we have a question. Thank you, Theo. Jonathan Gardenchart.
Jonathan, I cannot hear you.
Unmute. Sorry about that. I would love it if you could talk about your background, because even though I am a county committee member, I didn't receive your letter. So it'd be great to know a little bit about your background.
Well, I'll go very quickly. I was born in France. I came here when I was 3 months old. 3 months old, I did a sting as an actor for Pampers. Then when I was 7 years old, because I grew up in Washington Heights in the building where I still live today, that is Reagan corruption, my mother sent me back to my father in France. I learned French and English in France. That's where my accent comes from. I learned Spanish in New York. Then at 17, after I got pulled by the NYPD at gunpoint over driving my uncle's car, basically I left for Alaska. I went to study, I studied computer science in Alaska. Then I got hired by, in the Silicon Valley. And then after the dot-com burst, I came back to New York in the summer of September of 2001. And then I got hired in 2004 by Time Warner to rebuild the whole digital infrastructure. And then I got laid off during the merger of Spectrum, the Time Warner Charter merger. And ever since I've been building Rep My Block, trying to get as many people into the county committee. And that's basically, that's in a nutshell. And I'm married to a wonderful psychiatrist, just to mention it.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Annie.
Hi, Annie. Hello. One, two, three. Oh.
I don't think that she's.
I've asked her to unmute.
Well,
I have too, so I don't know that.
No, I am being, hello, I'm trying again. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I saw it flashing back and forth on mute, 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 unmute several times. So apologize for that confusion. Theo, hello. And my question is regarding whether or not you think that Mayor de Blasio should be negotiating to procure hydropower from dams in Canada built on Indigenous lands. And what would you do as controller? I'm sorry, as public advocate regarding this matter?
So Annie, I know you very well. Thanks for the question of Hydro-Québec. I have a somewhat a different of opinion, but I'm still, Hydro-Québec, basically they build a dam in Canada to procure, to basically do sustainable electricity for the city of New York and Boston and everything. I've been investigating the Hydro-Québec history, and I've been talking to some people who are socialists from France who do work for the Quebec government, and ask them what's the story behind it, because there is this story about the indigenous land, and that's something that that really drives me nuts when you do not take in consideration the community to build something. Whether it's here in New York or it's somewhere else in the world, we need to be mindful of how we affect the community locally. And Hydro-Québec is an example that through our electric wire, we are causing harm somewhere else. And all that because someone wants to make a buck. And so we need to look at that, and we need to look at those contracts. We need to look, and so as public advocate, I want to make everything that the city does transparent, where you don't have to go through a FOIL request, plus an Article 78, plus something else, and go broke just to get the data that you need to make a better city. So that's basically my answer. And I just want to recognize one thing about Annie is a friend of mine, and she's a housing victim, and she has been kicked out of a house in Lower Manhattan because of UHAB corruption. And Jumani has been aware of it, and he has done nothing. He has done nothing, and he actually put one of the perpetrator of the victim of Annie into the City Planning Commission. When he put Sia Weaver as a city planning commissioner, or he nominated her, basically he has slapped in the face all the HPD victims that are fighting for their houses. And I just will finish there. Sorry for that.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for that. Jeremy? Jeremy
Thank-
Sherber? Sorry.
Sorry, I was just waiting for the unmute button. Theo, thanks for coming by today. As you know, the public advocate can introduce legislation in the city council. I'm wondering if there's any specific legislation you are planning to introduce if you become the public advocate.
So the first legislation I would like to introduce as public advocate is basically an amendment to the Ben Kallos bill, who was an amendment to the Congressman Caroline Maloney bill when she was councilwoman. Basically, what she introduced was that the contract, the city contract, should be accessible on a computer terminal. And Ben Kallos said that the computer terminal should be accessible from the internet. So the problem is many of those contracts are not visible. So the first slew of legislation is regarding housing corruption. How do we dole out the money, the millions of dollars, to nonprofits such as Riceboro, such as UHAB, such as Phibbs House, and all those things. And I hope tomorrow you ask all those questions to Sean Donovan and Diana Morales, because they're the one who have put together, who profit and who put together the plan of those private-public partnerships. So I will put as much legislation in the council to get transparency done.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Falon Dante Fitzpatrick.
Hi, everyone. Hi, thanks, Chio. Chio, I'm a small business operator in New York City and for the past 16 years. And my store in Chelsea is closing because my landlord refuses to work with me on any of the past due rent from the mandatory closures. What would you do to help small business owners now, not a year from now, like myself?
So, I mean, for you as a small owner, I will say this. We need UBI, Universal Basic Income, so everybody can survive. The actors that are struggling, I mean, what are we going to do? Open the theater and they're going to perform in front of an empty stage where nobody pays a ticket? That's not how it works. So we need to help everybody, UBI number one. For the other thing is right now, we need a complete freeze of everything that is rental. And we need to stop this thing of trying to find new business to replace existing business. So we need a complete freeze of everything. The third part for the future is we also need rent stabilization, universal rent stabilization for business and for people. And when I say that, I know that there is a lot of people who HDFC and co-op that depend on the stability of the business revenue. And that's why they prefer to go with a big bank name, because they pay their bill at the end of the month. So small business, we need to revitalize small business. And like Jumani said, in a way, small business are the biggest creator of jobs. But jobs doesn't appear because the government said. Job appear because there is opportunity out there and there is a need. So you as a small business, I mean, I'm telling you, we need to freeze. We need to freeze the rent right now, try to keep you alive while your store is closed. And the negotiation on rents hike, they shouldn't be taking place at this moment. This is like, I call it, this is a highway robbery in a way.
And thank you, Theo. Next we have Jim Forat.
Hi, Jim. Where?
Jim, if you could just unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you, Jim.
Jim?
I've unmuted.
Yes, you are. Go right ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would like to ask a general question that would be good for any candidate, but I'm asking it specifically of you because of your relationship with Time Warner. The cost of internet delivery in Manhattan is very, very high and not competitive. The people on Long Island have much cheaper rates, for example, and some people in Manhattan can access that service company. Recently, Spectrum was able to cut off the internet service to anyone who was not paid up on their bill, which meant that many people who are suffering because of the economic conditions in their lives, who have not been able to pay the bill, do not have access to basic things like COVID information, et cetera. What do you think is the solution? We know that Charter Spectrum's business plan is not client-oriented, but profit-oriented. But what would you suggest to do, given your interest in this arena?
Thank you for your question. I'm a public internet kind of guy. The city has the ability to build public internet and put back Time Warner Cable, Verizon, and all these people who have built their technology around the free labor that computer engineer give away. The same way I'm giving away Rep My Blog to the people, many of the technology that runs the internet was given for free. I know because I used it when I worked there. My NDA with Time Warner is over, so I can talk smack about Spectrum. They're a bad company, they're bad to their employee, they are bad to everybody. The problem is the city leader didn't pay attention to when the merger with Spectrum happened, they didn't pay attention to what was going on in the industry. Nobody told them, hey, Altice just bought up Cablevision. You have 100% of the workforce of Cablevision that is out of work. Suddenly, when Local 3 walked out of the Time Warner Cable job, they got replaced immediately by Cablevision employee. So the Spectrum Charter strike will last another 10 years. Don't expect it to see anything change until the leader of the city of New York do something with the franchise agreement. Will they do that? I don't know, but I will.
What would you do?
What?
What would you propose?
The public internet, the public option of having a public internet. The city of New York running a municipal internet and broadband system using all of the broadband capability that the city has. We need to figure out how to get high speed into NYCHA. We need to look at how new technology can be used to bring, we have so many talented computer engineers in New York City that are willing to do the work for free, to use new technology to bring new things, new internet into everywhere in New York City, coming from the mesh network, coming from, I mean, I could speak for hours, so I'll stop now. Public internet, it needs to be on the table.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think in following Germani's precedent of 1 minute closing, so I'm going to provide that for you, Theo, and then I'll throw it back to Cam, and I think that we'll allow Tony to do that as well.
Well, thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody. And one of the things I wanted to close is I want to say I will be a spicy public advocate. Not a loud one, because I like to work somewhat privately. And so for that, I will hire Germani back, because I want the Germani's experience in my administration. Another thing I will do is we need to call out the NYPD. We need to call out for Pat Lynch to resign. We need to, the public advocate need to help the rank and file NYPD to vote a board in their union that looked like the rank and file, not some 1950 dragnet body. Another thing is about the upzoning and all that. MIH needs to go. So many billions of dollars is used to victimize so many New Yorkers, and there is nothing worse than being victimized by the city of New York when it comes to your housing, because it leads into mental health problem, it leads into bad nutrition, it leads into many things. Housing is the most important thing in a human being psyche. So that's basically it. I could talk about school, but I hope to get, I was going to close. Please call me, please invite me, and also vote for me next year in September at the county committee chairmanship meeting. Thank you. And I'll see you then.
Thank you very much. And with that, Cam?
Yeah, thank you, everybody. I don't believe Tony is here. I was told he had another meeting, but if I'm wrong, Tony, please feel free to unmute yourself.
I think he just left.
Oh, that's too bad. Just so everyone knows, we hadn't planned closing statements in the beginning, so that sort of popped up with Jumani. We didn't intentionally bar anybody from giving a closing statement, and we were obviously hoping to remedy that with him speaking at the end, but unfortunately he's no longer here. Thank you so much to our candidates for this incredibly informative forum, for answering everybody's questions, and thank you to the participants who asked some phenomenal questions and really gave us a lot to think about for our endorsements. And thanks again to all the clubs and Chung and Richard for moderating with us. Yeah, and with that, I'll bid everybody adieu, unless any Richard or anybody else has anything they'd like to say. Oh, David, you had something to say.
I just want to say that Lower Manhattan lost a really special activist a little over a week ago, Corky Lee, really staple of our community and an amazing photographer who documented activism as well as participating in it and blended those things in a way that I think Jumani talked about a little bit. And so I just wanted to say a word. I know a lot of people on this Zoom were closer to him than I was, but he's really an important part of Lower Manhattan's community and activist scene. And I wanted to send my appreciation to him.
Thank you, David, for that. Yeah, I was just saying right before this call, we lined up the streets of Chinatown so that his procession can come by one more time. So
that's really beautiful. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to say? Seeing none. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, and VID members, we have our endorsement meeting later today, so please attend that. And we will hopefully see all of you tomorrow at the mayoral forum.
Yes, thank you.
Right.